I have a little folder that I just,
We like to burn the trees.
yeah. I hole punch them and put it in my folder, so. It's a cool,
Yeah.
it's good.
So this class is sort of a hodgepodge of several different things, but bottom line is, end of the day, it's all about this thing called negotiating, which quite frankly, in our world, it's a big part of why we get paid for what we do. Right? And so the better we are at it, the more likely we are to be successful for our clients, creating win-win situations and getting deals to the closing table. And everything that goes into this, for those buyers and sellers out there that, you know, when they're buying and selling real estate and trying to, if you're that seller trying to get the best deal possible, if you're the buyer trying to get the best deal possible, and everything isn't absolutely perfect and ideal, meaning the buyer is paying full price cash, no contingencies, and closing in 2 weeks, means there's probably gonna be some negotiation going on somewhere along the way. Make sense?
Yeah.
How we handle it and how we operate and things to look out for and prepare ourselves for. I figure that two of you are probably pretty close to expert at this, between having a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and you being a full-time teacher of high school kids. Means you've learned a little bit about negotiating.
Yes, yes, true.
Yeah.
With the kids, yeah. If you want to get done something, then you definitely have to offer them.
In our business, though, unfortunately, the more difficult part comes in is you can't really bribe people, you know? Yeah. However, well, anyway, we'll just dive in because there's a lot of material here. We're gonna zip along.
Mhm.
This first page actually came from an older training session. Goes back a pretty fair number of years, and it was you could probably actually still find it online in the Keller Williams archives for our training. And it was two very, very prominent Keller Williams agents doing a role play. One was representing a buyer, one was representing a seller, and it had to do, and it was a video. It all had to do with how they interacted with one another, with their clients, with the other agent, and there was a negotiation going on in the back and the forth, and the 12 key points of that video are on this page. So we'll just touch on these things as we move along. And as I'm yakking, I think Jessica knows by now, she's been at more than one or two of these. You got something to say, just say it. Don't, you know, it's not all about me just yakking. Although a lot of these classes turn out to be me yakking, but I appreciate any yakking you want to do. All right, so part of the learning steps of this particular session, and there were 12 of them, and number one was developing sales skills. And the developing sales skills means coming to class, getting smart, learning real estate. The more comfortable you get with real estate in general, the terminologies involved, the kind of emotional swings that you can anticipate people will have during the course of a transaction. You know, the more of that you're exposed to, the more skillful you're going to be if you're paying attention. Right. So you want to keep going to school, keep practicing, keep reading. You know, this topic today, negotiating, gosh, I mean, there's volumes and volumes of books written by everybody and their brother and sister too, on how to do it and do it, you know, correctly. Number two is like getting out of the way. So what does happen from time to time, and depending on your own personality, and how much experience you start gathering, we all of a sudden we become the leaders of of the transaction rather than listening and following and paying attention. So we start interjecting ourselves sometimes when it's perfectly fine if we're not interjecting ourselves. So letting people make decisions, letting people have conversations, letting people communicate their needs and wants. And sometimes we, the realtors, our best sales skills are just getting out of the way and letting things happen, paying attention. You know, as I said, we start getting this success and we start feeling we need to interject. And sometimes we are helping to shoot ourselves and our clients in the foot by doing so. Don't be attached to the outcome. So, you know, every time you have a buyer and a seller, and every time you have a purchase and sale executed, agreed to, is every one of those transactions going to get to the closing table before it blows up? No. Our goal is to see to as many as possible getting to the closing table and not blowing up. But people are going to make bad decisions or just not be able to come to a meeting of the minds. So we can't always, you know, we can't always create that win-win situation. Everybody gets to the closing table, buyers happy, sellers happy, and life is good. We try our best, we do our best, we offer the best advice, the best counseling. We stay on top of things, we look for solutions to the best of our ability, but understand that we can't be married to the outcome. It's gonna have its own legs.
So how much chances are there, right, on at the closing table if some buyer back out or seller back out? Like, what is the percentage like out of the transactions?
Well, was your question about what are the percentages of that happening at the closing table?
Yes, usually like I think everybody comes with the mindset like they have to done the deal, right? So what what are the causes it came to their mind like, oh, we are not going to do that?
Yeah, that's another whole class. My bulletproofing transactions class, which is a Friday class that I do on a rotating basis, is 11 o'clock to 12:30. And that class particularly deals with what are the most common reasons why a transaction won't close. What are those things that the buyers and sellers need to be aware of and be proactive in their education with their buyers and their sellers? Because there are probably 10 primary reasons why deals don't come together at the end of the day, even though buyers and sellers entered into an agreement. And again, developing those sales skills, learning about what are those 10 things, and learning about, well, if one of them or two of them pops up during the course of a transaction, what are the remedies? What are the solutions? How do we overcome the obstacles? Having said that, on a big global scale, how many transactions that start don't finish? I'd say on national level, that's probably close to 50%.
Whoa, I was gonna say, 10%.
Used to be 10 or 11%. It used to be 10 or 11%. Now, our fallout rate is significantly less than the national, but we're hovering in close to 30%.
Whoa.
And you know, the most interesting thing about this negotiation, and as much as you do, and as much as you put your heart and soul into it, and you give people their best professional advice, I will tell you my own personal experience, which you know, goes back to the horse and buggy days. So I've got a few years here. Over the last couple of years, I have seen more, not to scare you guys, but just more buyers at the end of the day, 2 days or 3 days before closing, going, I'm not closing. Or a seller 2 or 3 days before closing saying, I'm just not closing. I don't care, sue me. And people are like literally that determined not to follow through with the transaction for whatever their reasons. Sometimes they're our clients, sometimes they're the other clients. When those kind of things happen, there's really nothing we can do. And that's the part of don't get married to the outcome. Because all we can do is help guide people the best of our ability. And, you know, Lord knows what people have going on in their lives and why they're going to make certain decisions. And the timing of those decisions. We only have, you know, you think about the real estate transaction, the normal transaction is gonna have you as an agent, another agent, you're gonna have a buyer, you're gonna have a seller, you're gonna have attorneys, you're gonna have a mortgage lender, you're gonna have a home inspector, you're gonna have aunts and uncles and professional water cooler people. And you just, all these moving parts, yeah, all these moving parts. So we could spend time talking about this part and that'll be the rest of the class, but
But I can see why the follow-up rate is about 30 now. That, gosh, as soon as you see something, you have to like put in an offer and you haven't slept on it. You haven't worked out the ins and the out. And then like during that time, that's when you're working it out and you're like, damn, you know what? This is not right for me, so I can totally see it.
so what Jessica's talking about right now is our current marketplace and the marketplace that we've been living in for the last 3 years. The real estate industry and the markets shift and change all the time. For instance, as an example of that, for a mortgage rate for a buyer, fixed rate 30-year mortgage, traditional, conventional. Do either of you have an idea of what the current mortgage rates are?
Like,
Around 7.
Right around 7. So people for the last, up until a year and a half ago, for the last 15 years, interest rates were hovering around 3.5, 3, right? So that was a long stretch of time. And the marketplace, the buyers, the sellers, people got really comfortable with just an aberrant interest rate that lasted for 15 years. Historically, 7% is a very good interest rate. But for the people that are only relating to real estate over the last even 10 years, 15 years ago, wow, this is crazy, right? 7%. But even having said 7%, with the dynamics of the marketplace, the lack of inventory available in the marketplace. So Connecticut right now, I think, is number 2 in the country for the least available inventory for sale. Right?
Yeah.
And we still have, at 7%, we still have a buyer pool that is anxious to buy. So even, they're like putting, a lot of the people, the buyers are putting aside the 7%, not worried about it. I'm still interested in buying. The sellers who aren't putting their homes on the market are the people that have the 3% rates and going, I'm not giving up this interest rate. Right? It ain't happening.
Sellers are getting like a lot of bids, so it's getting like a 50K, 60K, and it's like a high $1 million house. It's kind of like 100K or something, 200K. They are getting more.
I don't care what price range you're in, obviously the lower the price range is, but that could be up to 300, 400,000, or you might have 10 or 15 or 20 offers on a property. Now $1 million, you might not, or 2 million, you might not get 20 or 10 offers, but you might get 3 or 4 or 5. But to that point, 30% of deals falling apart. These people that are putting offers in now, getting them accepted, and they're paying 30,000 more than asking price, 50,000 more than asking price, 150 more than asking price. And that's what it takes for them to win. And they have to waive their contingencies, waive their mortgage, pay cash, and and so the sellers are totally in the driver's seat. And people that have to react and respond so very, very quickly to a new house coming on the market, they don't have time to really think a great deal, ponder what they're doing. Hopefully they have been educated enough to know the marketplace of the day that we're in, so that they are moving forward as ready, willing, and able buyers, understanding to win in this market. How do they have to play the game? And it's like, if you're not prepared for that on all levels, your deal's going to fall apart, because people once they win in the rush of excitement,
Mhm.
and they just paid $100,000 more than the listing price. And all of a sudden they start panicking, and so, I mean, the interesting part of our current marketplace. Past several years, what we're dealing with right now. And so I've got 44 years in the business. This is the most unique, one of a kind market that I've ever experienced. And I've been through the ups and the downs in the buyers markets, the sellers markets, recessions, you name it. But this has several very unique qualities associated with it. Lack of inventory, just unbelievable. I can remember a recession going back into, say, 89, 90, 91. And there was so much property available, you couldn't sell property. I mean, wasn't that many years ago, but it's totally different market, right? So the thing is, for us, we don't create the markets. All we can do is respond to them and be educated to them and know how to speak to people and advise people based on the market that we're in. This is gonna change. This one will absolutely change.
Hope sooner than later.
Yeah, sooner. I think everybody,
For me.
I'm
being selfish.
That's all right. Yeah. I think everybody hopes it would like to see a change sooner rather than later. Because even, if you have listings right now, like they're gold. Unless you just like totally, you're putting $1 million price on a $300,000 property. Other than that, if you're hitting somewhere near reality, that property is gonna sell. So, but the thing is, even with that, you've got a house, you put it on the market, and next thing you know, you got 20 offers. And people are putting offers in with what we call escalation clauses, and they're jumping all over each other. And I mean, it creates creates a lot of havoc for people. And it's not necessarily pleasurable, right? But it's what we got to go with. So I think I just spent 15 minutes of our classroom talking about the market.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, we'll jump back on here. That's what you get for asking a question, though, see? All right, where do we start? Don't be attached to the outcome. Number 4, keep your emotions out of it. Yeah, so our job is to be cool cucumbers, right? But this is real estate. Buyers are gonna get emotional, sellers are gonna get emotional. It's to be expected. We need to expect that. Our job is to let them have their emotion, but in the same time, sort of keep things in check and make sure that we're bringing common sense perspective to the conversation, to the moment, to the overall negotiation, transaction. So keeping our emotions out of it. Obviously, our goal is to get a contract signed, because until then, you really don't have much to work with, whether that's a listing or a buyer. This is obviously an older class that says negotiate via fax and phone. We don't do too much fax stuff anymore, although it still has a place, but not too much of a place. But the good part of Connecticut with the negotiation part is once an offer is submitted, what happens from there is usually verbal, going back and forth between the listing agent, their seller client, the buyer's agent, the buyer's client, and it's back and forth verbal. It's every time you have to communicate or change something, it does not have to be done in writing until you get to the end zone. Well, controlling what we say is very similar to keeping your emotions out of it. And sometimes if, like, for instance, if we're on the phone, and somebody might be giving you some real attitude, for instance, might be your own client, might be the other agent, God knows, might be who knows, an attorney, but sometimes, you got to literally take the phone, hold it away from you, take a deep breath, maybe 2, and then get back on, but be controlled and composed when you get back on the phone. Don't get caught up in that motion. That's not our job. Keeping commissions out of it. So yes, there will be times when it's practical for us to throw a few dollars at a transaction to help it get to the closing table, but it should always be as a last resort. Most time, if buyers and sellers are, they're gonna work out their differences if that buyer wants to buy and that seller wants to sell. It's not uncommon for them, if they get stuck at some place, and it might be over the last $1,000 of a negotiation where the seller's not willing to come down a nickel, the buyer's not willing to come up a nickel, and they're at an impasse. And you've just been working with the buyer for 6 months, and quite frankly, they're not the easiest people to deal with. And you're gonna be real happy when the transaction's over, so you can say goodbye to them. So, yeah, it's that kind of a case where we might go and make the practical decision that, yeah, let's talk about putting in some money to help this transaction get it to the finish line. But those are usually conversations with me. Is it a good idea? It's not a good idea. What do you know? But we don't offer up our commission dollars unless we're at the last resort. Keeping commissions out.
Yep, last resort.
Last resort. As far as emotions, we're gonna continually refer the buyers and sellers back to their emotions, not their bad emotions, their good emotions. Why are they doing what they're doing? And when do they want to be where they want to be, and how do they see that happening? And because people in the short play, they can get angry and tense and get caught up in not making that good decision, versus they can't see past the current moment frustration, and so they lose sight of the big picture. And it's like, let's get back to that emotion of the big picture. So helping to guide people in that path can be very, very helpful. We're always striving for win-win or no deal. So, we want this to be good for the buyers. We want it to be good for the sellers. Granted, we're maybe only representing one side of the transaction. We're not representing both. But we want things to be honest and straightforward, and we want people to negotiate in good faith, and we want people to look for solutions and work together. That's always what we strive for. And number 11, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's kind of our job. It's good salespeople. Good salespeople ask lots of good questions. Bad salespeople talk a lot. Our job, it's like, ask and listen, and sort of get to the core of what's motivating people, what are their needs and wants, why are they doing what they're doing, and then really how do we help them get there. Asking questions is very important. And the last was don't burn bridges. And I can tell you numerous times where during the course of a transaction, it might be your client. They're totally frustrated. They're upset. They might be angry at you. They're angry at the world. They're just like, of course, we're the closest thing to them during the course of a transaction, So if things go awry, they're frustrated, and they might be yelling and screaming at us. This doesn't happen that often, but just as an example. And then, I've seen it play out where in the moment, you've got that kind of an experience going on where they've kind of blown up and they've lost it. But by the time you get to the closing table, they're hugging and kissing and they love you, and they're going to be your best referral source ever. So, you sort of that moment explosion of frustration and anxiety and stress, you just gotta let it go. Not everybody's going to do what we want to do. And at the end of the day, also, people you've been working with, and may never have a successful transaction with them for whatever reasons. And maybe it's because they made a couple bad decisions, and we advised them as best we could. They didn't take our advice. They blew it. So rather than burn the bridge, you sort of have some sympathy for those people, and treat them fairly, because those are the type of people that they'll be that sphere of influence resource for you, because you treated them so well and they recognize that you did. They'll refer people to you. And that's the big, the big picture for us is getting those referrals. Obviously, the transactions are important, but
Referral.
if they don't happen, what you don't want to do is be pointing the finger,
Mhm.
you stupid son of a bitch. Right. All right, so those were the 12 highlight points of that particular role play between the two agents in their negotiating for their parties. This next page just comes from another whole, this is it's Keller Williams class, and it's more of a full day class, but this is a one pager from that full day class. Just speaks to indicators of the win-win versus the win-lose in negotiating. So if you look at the left-hand column, the win-win column, you've got people that are integrative. If it's win-lose, they're combative. If you're win-win, you're collaborative. If it's win-lose, you're one-sided. On win-win, you're positive. Win-lose, you're adversarial. On the win-win, you're trusting. On the win-lose, you're non-communicative. On the win-win, you're respectful. If you're not, you're demanding. Explorative versus ego-driven. Sharing versus competitive. Solution-oriented versus divisive. Now, we should be hanging on that left-hand side all the time. And I trust that you will. The problem is everybody you deal with won't be. So, again, we have a job to do. And, if we're on the left-hand side and we've got, let's just call it the other agent in the transaction on the right-hand side, who's got attitude. And maybe they've inherited the attitude of their client. And maybe they have their own attitude. They're the big high roller. They've been in business for 25 years and you're kind of this rookie agent. And what do you know anyway? And let me tell you how it's done. And, they'll try to put a heavy foot on you, and rather than that 25-year agent who's been in the business and been very, very successful, who isn't ego driven, but they're looking for solutions and they're willing to offer you whatever help they can and guide you in whatever way they can and to make things work in whatever way they can. That's what we should be always striving for. I still, that's one thing after all these years, people are people. We've got good realtors, we've got bad realtors, we've got good everything, bad everything, don't care what industry you're in, right? I think our business on some levels, on the basic levels, it's pretty simple. You're respectful of people, you're always treating people professionally, in kind, and you're looking for solutions to help them get to their goals. And how do you best go about doing that? Well, I don't think by throwing punches is how you get from point A to point B, right? And I always say that's why, sometimes you got to take that phone and hold it away from you, because our natural human instinct reaction is somebody gives you a pound of crap and you want to punch them in the nose.
You want to give it right
And
back.
you want to give it right back because there's an instinct there. Like, how dare you, And so, anyway, hopefully you'll never run into anybody that has those kind of bad habit traits, but you will.
Yeah.
All right. So in the body of all this paperwork here comes from we call a lunch and learn. It's one of the family reunions, which are every February for Keller Williams. That's a company-wide thing. People come from all over the world. And the family reunion events are held in various large cities like Orlando or Vegas, or places that can hold big crowds, because our crowds are typically in the 15,000 people show up for these events. And the education and the sharing is just amazing. This was a class that was done in the 2016 Lunch and Learn, and I always liked it. I took the material from it and said, this this is a, you know, material that I want to introduce to our people, and I still introduce it because it's still totally relevant. You know, there's nothing with this that's irrelevant to, you know, looking for advantages to help our people get where they need to go. In this thing called negotiations. So we jump a bunch of pages. There is a definition on page 7 of negotiating. So it says bargaining, give and take process between two or more parties, each with its own aims, needs, and viewpoints, seeking to discover a common ground and reach an agreement to settle a matter of mutual concern or resolve a conflict. Now, you know, historically in the real estate world, it would be, I'm the seller of the property, and ideally I want to get the most money I possibly can and with the least hassle in the shortest period of time. If I'm the buyer, I want to buy it for as little as possible and get the best deal possible with the best terms and conditions for me. So inherently there's, you know, we're not on the same page as far as our goals. Now, what's changed for us in this current market, which is several years old at this point, is the buyers don't have any leverage, right? So the buyers are in a very weak position if they decide that they want to go in and you've got the house that's listed for 400,000 and they want to offer 350 and it's been on the market for one day. Well, good luck.
Ain't gonna happen.
Right, just not gonna happen. I mean, it doesn't fall into the realm of possibility. So we know that the market says the sellers are in the driver's seat, and buyers have to, if they want a property, they have to reply accordingly. And so, but that, again, that'll change. Sellers aren't in a position that they want to do a lot of negotiating right now. The buyers are typically aware of that, and that sets the foundation for how we move forward today. Yeah, page 8 talked about facts about negotiating. You're negotiating all the time. It's an art form, and it instills the possessor with great power. Now, you can't really, it's a horrible copy, but this is a mother and a child. So, you know, it's that, you know, I think about the kids, you know, when do kids start becoming incredibly good negotiators? Yeah, you know, I don't know, but probably by the time they're 1, maybe even earlier, get what they want, and then they get a little bit older and they know when they need to go to mom or when they need to go to dad, and when they, you know, right? I mean, kids get real smart about the art part, you know. So we sort of inherently have this ability in us to understand about getting our way, but how do we go about getting our way? And do we do it in you know, in an adult fashion, so to speak? But for us, it's not only maybe I have some natural ability as a negotiator, and maybe I don't, because some people are, you know, more tuned to it than others. But that's where the learning skills and the practicing and paying attention and listening to people and dialoguing with people and reading material, this all comes into benefit us in our real estate careers if we're paying attention to it. Yes. So on page 9 it says anything you want is owned or controlled by someone else. Now, the key there is if you want it and you don't already have it, that means it's out there. So it's out there in the form of a product, or it's out there in the form of a commodity. If it's out there in the form of a product, that's like going to the store and pulling the box of cereal off the shelf, and you're going to pay the money for the cereal and check at checkout. It's, you know, the price is the price is the price. That's not real estate. Real estate is a commodity. It's a stock in a sense, right? It goes up and it goes down. So the people that have the misunderstanding, if you will, that real estate has always gone up. No. You know, it's like, if the stock is worth $500, are you going to pay $1,000 for it? No. If that house is only worth $250, are you going to pay $500 for it? No. Although right now you might.
Now you might.
Yeah,
I
talking about,
refuse
yeah. Oh, an anomaly of time. That's
to.
like,
I know, double the price.
yeah. Anyway. Page 10. Three critical factors in negotiating. This is anytime there's really negotiation, there's, three of these. So you got power, you got information, and you got timing. So, we'll talk about a bit about this stuff. And then on page 11, there's different personality styles. We're gonna talk a little bit about the personality style part. Anybody done any kind of personality, like Tony Robbins stuff or disc assessment or anything like that, where maybe Keller Williams is big on this disc assessment, and you can actually do it for free. And it takes about 15-20 minutes. You go and answer about 24 questions by filling in a radio dial based on the questions. If you go to TonyRobbins.com, you'll find how to get to this on his homepage. It might be life experience, it might be under person, it'll be there somewhere, you'll find it.
Mhm.
I suggest taking it. It's amazing how much information you will get about yourself. And just don't do it, the idea of it is to answer. They're like questions that are, what's most like you? And they'll give you 4 choices. And then at the end, there'll be a series of questions, what's least like you? And there'll be some choices. And so you don't want to overthink it. It should literally take you 15 minutes or so. It's who you are. Your first reaction versus let me think about this for a half hour. You don't want to do that. And you should do it at when you're kind of relaxed and you're not totally stressed out. It's like, because that could influence how you might answer some things. I hate the world right now. But yeah, so in our KW culture, you will hear us more than once or twice or often, if you're going to various trainings, people talking about the DISC, and the D, each of the letters stands for predominant personality style. I'm a big D personality, I'm a big I personality, I'm a C personality, I'm an S personality. Well, what does that mean? Well, and not only is it like, what does it mean for us, but even more importantly is as we get to understand these personality styles, observing them in other people, our clients, and it's not just real estate, it's literally family members that could, just, it's life. But bottom line, being able to communicate with people the way that they're most comfortable communicating gives us an advantage on the whole level of communication versus putting, the round peg in the square hole. I'm a D, we'll talk about these a little bit. I'm a D personality, and I'm talking to Jessica, who's a C personality, and I don't recognize her C personality, and I don't give a shit because I got my D personality going, and we're not gonna mesh.
No.
We're not gonna mesh. So anyway, so we're gonna talk about, getting to understand not only ourselves and, but how that relates to sort of modeling when we're dealing with other people.
And I did one once, I can't remember what it said, but
Yourself?
it was like a really spot on. I was like, what the hell? Like, for real, that is me. So I was reading it to my sister and she was like, yup, that's
Yeah,
you.
No, it's pretty amazing stuff. And
Yeah.
you get the report will come in 2 parts. One is, who are you in your natural state when you're not at work? What is that personality? And then how are you in your adapted state when you're in a work environment? And it might be the same, it might not be the same. But there's a lot of good learning from it. So
Mhm.
go find it and go do it. And then let me know your results.
Tony Robbins.
TonyRobbins.com. All right, so page 12, simple rules of win-win negotiations. Page 13. making sure that we are including all of the issues when we're writing offers and submitting. And so we need to do a little bit of digging and finding out, the more we know, the circumstance of our buyer and what they're trying to achieve, the more we understand the circumstances of the seller. And sometimes that information is going to be somewhat limited, but for as much of that information as we can gather, the more we know, the better. It puts us in a position to better construct the offer that we want to submit and to impress the seller, you know. And 14, getting to know other persons. You know, as we've now come out of the COVID thing, it's when you have the opportunity to get into environments where there are your real estate colleague people, whether you're Keller Williams people or you're at some realtor event, or get to know people. It's easier, by far it's easier when you get into a transaction and get into a negotiation and you already have some familiarity with that person that you're going to be speaking with, who's representing the other side of the transaction. That goes a long way, because immediately you've already met, you already have some identification with each other. You sort of like, yeah, I remember that person, I liked her, I liked him, and you've already broken the ice. You don't have to prove that you're a decent human being that has a brain on your head, you know. So anytime you can get to meet people, get to shake hands, get to know people, do it. Page 15. Yeah, never assume money is the bottom line. And that's very, very true. Again, that's probing, if it's your seller client, probing that client to really understand what's driving this decision to sell. An example, it might be an estate sale, and it might be mom and dad have passed, and the siblings who live in other states are equal partners in crime, if you will, and trying to come and clean up and sell the family property. And they're busy people, they have lives, they live across the country. Their motivation is, can we get this done as quickly as possible with the least inconvenience to me? And do I care that I get an extra $1,000 or $2,000? No, I want the cleanest transaction with offering me the least amount of hassle. And that's my bottom line, not necessarily the money, right? So we have to make sure we're asking the right questions and we're digging into those issues of most importance to our clients. Now, is the bottom line oftentimes the big factor? Yeah, often. But here's another thing with our environment today, you know, for those people that are multiple offers and 20 offers on a property or 10 offers on a property, and somebody's paying 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 more. Well, that on paper, that $70,000 more might look like an obvious winner if you're looking strictly at the bottom line. But can that thing get to the closing table based on the terms and conditions and the financing associated with the offer? Versus this one isn't quite nearly as high, but man, it's solid right across the board. And the timing might be better, their financial structure might be better. They're not offering as much, but it might still be my choice as a seller because it fits all the other criteria that are most important to me. Right. So anyway, never assume it's money.
So, one question, John. So, usually, suppose multiple people are offering multiple offers, right? So, how we get to know like how much percentage of money we have to put as a offer? They tell like they have other offers kind till this level, or that if you put more on that, then you will get the offer. Like how it is? How we will get to know like how much percentage of money we
How
have
much
to
do they want to offer?
Yeah.
It's yeah, there's no straightforward answer to that. It's, you know, I would say at the end of the day, when you're in this kind of environments, you have to advise if the party really, really truly wants the property. And based on the length of time it's been on the market, based on the cut price range, setting the expectation for that buyer, it might be a conversation, look, based on what's happening currently and what's happened in the very recent past, this property, I can't tell you what it's gonna sell for. I don't have a crystal ball. But somebody might be coming in 30, 40, 50, $60,000 or more above asking price. All I can say to you folks is, at this juncture, I would suggest you put your best foot forward, knowing that if you don't get it, you're okay, because you literally put your best foot forward and you offered as much as you feel comfortable offering. It's because the one thing you don't ever want to do is set the number for them. They have to create the number.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily easy. And then you got the people that you're just starting to work with. They're, say, first time buyers. And even though we've had preliminarily in a buyer consultation, we've gone over their needs and wants, and we've gone over what the market looks like and what it takes to necessary for buyers to win properties and get their deals accepted. And then you get out there and they're actually now in the hunt, and you got the property that comes on the market, and it comes on the market at 300,000, and your buyer feels that they only want to offer $305,000 or 300,000 or 295. And we kind of know that this is an exercise in in futility. Yes, close enough. Futile effort. However, as part of the learning curve, we would want to share that we wouldn't think that and set the expectation that this has a good chance to win, but the exercise of getting them involved and putting the offer in, and hopefully extracting some information from that listing agent. Hey, Mary, how many offers can you share? How many offers you did receive? And I know you can't tell me the sale price, but can you tell me, was the winning bid well over asking price? Or, to try to go back to your client as an education of next time we're out there trying to put the next offer in on the next property. And then it's also sets a tone for maybe this isn't the right marketplace for the buyer at this point in time. If they're not willing to step up to this degree, and it's understandable, but if they're not willing to, or they just feel it's just too much pressure and too much stress, now might not be the time for them to be looking at housing.
Yeah.
No, that's a new property on the market. If it's a property that's been on the market for a month or two, and it's still out there, and they like the property, well, then there's probably a different level of conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, usually I saw right, the price came down to that house, right? So then it can be varies according to that, right? The house is getting down, so they can come up with the less price.
Well, you're talking about reductions of
Yeah.
a listing price being reduced.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens. It doesn't happen too much in this current market we're in, but normally if a house is on the market for, some period of time, and again, depending on the market, how long would that be before a listing agent's going to suggest to the seller, look, we're not getting the response we need to get from the marketplace. We're not getting anybody offering anything. We're not getting reshows. We've been on the market for 2 weeks now. I think it's time we have that conversation about price adjustment. So otherwise, it's a good likelihood you're going to sit out here in the marketplace with no action, going nowhere, and your house is getting more stale and more stale and more stale.
Mhm.
So then you get that person to reduce the price. Well, depending on how big of a reduction, and it might, or it may or may not stir the marketplace. And so we may get the desired result. We're going to get more showings, reshows, and we're going to get some offers. But if that doesn't happen, and we now go back past another couple of weeks or so, I mean, at a point in time, they have to just keep adjusting that price if they're serious about selling. And the longer they hang around waiting for some miracle, the more stale the property is going to get. But, you know, that's where the beauty of having listings is right now, because the marketplace isn't difficult for sellers to sell, it's difficult for buyers to buy. You know, it's always, you know, things a case by case basis. What's the circumstances? How long has it been on the market? How, you know, and so,
Yeah, it depends all the factors also, like why that property goes down or something. Okay.
all right, what are we on here? We're on. Oh, page 16, 3 stages of negotiation. Yes. And we just said never assume the bottom line. We got those done. So gathering information. So yeah, that's our job, gathering information. Always looking for the win-win situations. People being collaborative with one another. Reaching out. Yeah, know that negotiation requires interaction. The only thing I'll say about this is we're in a younger people, I don't want to label younger people. Well, you guys would both be younger people for me, but, so it's all relative, but people have gotten more and more comfortable with texting and versus any other form of communication. And I just say that, you know, the email and the text stuff is okay, and that might be people's preference, but there are times to really get to the heart of the matter and get real clear communication. You need to be on the phone talking or sitting down in person, you know, and that might take some people out of their comfort zone. It may require that we try to push that envelope. Now, if everything's going along merrily with texting and emailing, okay, but generally I find that there has to be communication, phone or eyeball to eyeball.
Door knock somebody soon.
You what?
I'm about to door knock somebody soon that I've been texting and calling,
Yeah.
but no reply, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll get out of my comfort zone and go door knock her.
See how you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea. You'll survive it.
I agree.
Okay, page 20, desire to acquire negotiating skills. So yeah, you know, go to school, practice. And that's what page 22 and 23 are, but 21 is just understanding principles and gambits. You know, when do we talk? When do we listen? When do we probe? And I just say on that, we should be focusing more on probing and asking questions and listening versus talking. Obviously, we have to talk, but just be mindful. The more you can get people to talk, the better
More
result.
information we will get from them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at page 24, we had critical elements of negotiating. We talked about this power, information, and timing. Yes. So first of those, power, understanding it and gaining it. Possibly the most important element in any negotiation. Somebody's controlling and somebody is being controlled. You know, if that is that dynamic playing out. Your pages might be a little screwed up, but I thought I got them in pretty good order. Everything's okay?
Yeah.
So a lot of that power, information, timing, power, you know, does somebody have that power influence over the transaction? Yes, no, maybe. And then if they do they have legitimate power versus they have fake power? Like, I'm powerful, I'm good, I'm the greatest. And no, you're not. But I'm gonna stroke your ego because I need to work with you.
Exactly.
Lord, you. So on page 26, we had to talk about power. So there's listed here eight 8 types of power. And these are things just to be aware that people that would profess either rightly or wrongly to have legitimate power, and there's reward power, punishment power, reverent power, charismatic power, expertise power, situational power, information power. So if somebody has legitimate power, we may or may not agree, but say the President of the United States is an example of legitimate power. Well, chances are there's going to be a certain element of what I say goes, and there isn't going to be a lot of debate. Potentially, there's not going to be a lot of debate to get a desired result. Where we need to be careful with the people that profess the legitimate powers, do they really have legitimate power? Because the legitimate power person or the expertise power person, the other agent in a transaction that has 25 years of experience, may say things to you with the utmost of confidence that what they're saying to you is true. And they want you to buy in. And all I can tell you is that that's not always the case at all. And I can't tell you how many people, how many situations I've run across over a number of years where the people who have a lot of years of experience in our business don't know what they're doing. So you can't just take, I'm 25 years into business and you listen to me, rookie, as being gospel. So if it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't taste right, if it doesn't sound right, it might not be right. You might want to call me, right? Don't just openly trust the fact that somebody is telling you, because use your good common sense. It's like, boy, that doesn't sound right, so don't hesitate to call me on these things. That's what I spend a big part of my days talking to our agents and with their clients and dealing with transactions and so forth. 28 and 29, we have reward power and punishment power. So some people on their motivations to act will perform based on the potential reward at the end of the performance. In our business, it could be something as simple as we have a listing contest for the company, and whoever comes in with the most listings in the next 90 days wins some reward. And and it might be, the reward might be something really, really minuscule. But it's not the prize itself, it's or the value of the prize, but it's just the prize. We had a contest and there was a reward. And if I perform, I'm going to win and I will be acknowledged for that. And that motivates me, right? And that reward thing really can motivate people. Yeah, on the reverse, punishment can really motivate people. It's the pain. You know what? If you don't do this, the likely outcome for you is going to be this. Are you prepared for that? So and some people, probably reality, probably more people will respond to the punishment pain part versus the reward. I think. I mean, both work, but and not everybody's the same, but it's like, what makes them tick? At page 30, we have what's called reverent power. And so somebody who's esteemed in the world and the profession. In this case, this is Mo Anderson. Mo Anderson is about 86 years old now, 87, 85. She was running Keller Williams alongside with Gary Keller for many years throughout the early 90s into the 2003-4 period. And she was the sort of day-to-day operations person. and it was also during a period of time when Keller Williams was growing monumentally. Mo right now, she's very much involved with the charitable wing, KW Cares operation, and she sits on the board of directors and all that. Anyway, long and short, she's a very revered person within Keller Williams. And people that have that mystique, when they say something, you tend to listen to them, and you tend to believe them, and you tend to want to follow them. And we all have people in our lives that fit that bill on some level. But that is a certain level of power that certainly exists. And you might run across it during your real estate career at some point, and it may be, again, it may be that person deserves every bit of attention and reverence, or maybe they don't, but it's real.
It is real. I think you're revered too.
Pardon?
I'm saying, I think you're revered.
Well, I should,
Yeah, definitely.
just remember that, I should be revered.
You are. It does exist.
Page 31, charismatic power. Now, old picture of Bill Clinton, but you know, whether you like Bill or you didn't like Bill, or you didn't follow politics or you did, I mean, he was considered at a time to be somebody that could work both sides of the aisle. He could talk to Democrats and Republicans and they could get things done,
Yeah.
but we haven't had that kind of an environment for many years now. You know, when it comes to
Yeah.
politics in Washington, it's complete
Yeah.
complete division of
Left or
50% of the
right.
country's here and 50% of the country's here, and they just don't want to talk to each other.
Yeah.
right?
Middle ground.
No middle ground. But anyway, so the charismatic, the idea, okay, it's Bill, but I mean, we all know somebody's in our lives, what we consider to be very charismatic figures. And that charismatic figure exudes a lot of power, hopefully in a good way. But again, it might not be a good way. But there are people that have charisma. We identify that, and those charismatic people bring people to them. And like I told you, to go to TonyRobbins.com. Are you familiar, either of you, with Tony Robbins? This guy's been around for a long time. He's a motivational guy. And he is maybe he might be the most successful motivational person ever in the history of our world. And he's still out there. And Tony, he holds all kinds of events, and a really charismatic, very well educated, but very charismatic person. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people will descend on his events to participate. And it's like, Jesus, yeah, that's power.
Yep.
That's power. And they pay some pretty big money to do it too. Yeah. All right. 32, expertise power. Yeah, so, you know, picture of a doctor. Well, yeah. Who's that person that claims to have the expertise? And, you know, it might be the agent with the 25 years of experience, and it's a really good, solid person who's been really well educated, who's in their game on a 100% top level, and they have gained expertise and they're willing to share it, all in a good way. But it's like, for every one of these powers, there are people that can legitimately have it and bestow it and share it. And there are people who might claim to have it and they don't deserve it. So that's where the fine line comes in, right? But I know for me, you know, on the doctor thing, I
Yeah.
tend to like my doctor. I think she's a very smart woman, and she seems to genuinely care about me, and so I trust her.
Yes, just like my dentist. I don't have.
Oh, I got that one too.
Oh, Lord, I love my dentist. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I love, actually, my dentist, I'm at that age where people retire. So my physician retired several years ago, and I loved him. And then it was Avon, and Pro Health Physicians took over. And the woman who heads up that particular Pro Health operation, never met her. She was supposed to be my primary. I was like, I tried to reach out and would never get responses, and I mean, I was like, geez, this is god awful.
Yeah.
And the anyway, my partner Karen, her doctor, who was not taking new patients, but Karen strong-armed her to take me in.
Right.
And thank God, because I was for a while there, I was like, what the hell am I gonna do? This ain't working. My dentist just retired 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And the lady that lady that took over his practice, Yo-Yo Chen. I mean, I love her. I mean, she's great, absolutely great. I'm so happy for my dentist that retired.
You're right.
And so happy that she's,
Somebody,
because
right.
she knows what she's doing. She's like, good. She took his operation, she modernized all the equipment, and you can tell she's really on top of her game, and she, you know, it's like, so I feel really. Yeah, comfortable, trusting.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway, so much for expertise power and what it can mean to us, right? Situational power, so let's give an example of a bank teller. So you go in there and based on the situation, you can only get so much help and it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and you're not gonna get more or less. And a person's authority is only gonna go so far. No, so reality. And the last one, informational power. Sharing information forms a bond, withholding information intimidates. Both of these give power. So, yeah, the sharing collaborative, finding solutions. I mean, there's a certain line where we have to protect our clients' confidentiality. But at the same time, within the parameters of that confidentiality, knowing that we are working towards their best interest and we have permission to do so. And they're always looking for solutions. We're not looking to be competitive, we're always looking for solutions. Sharing information is a much better choice than not sharing information. All right. So managing information. Asking in page 36, asking open-ended kinds of questions, getting soliciting answers that are not yes and no. Digging a little deep. Somebody gives you an answer to a question and you go, okay, thank you so much. And could you tell me a little more about that? And they tell you the next phase of that. What else about it? And it's like, dig. In this world of communication, which negotiation is communication, we tend to, I think that we're all good negotiators or we're all good communicators. And if the room was filled and how many of you think you're good communicators? Everybody raises their hand, but in reality, I don't think that's so true because we assume too much. If I ask either of you something and you give me an answer, it may or may not be what I think you're saying based on the way you're expressing it. So if I'm really communicating well with you, I'm gonna either parrot it back to you. Is this what you just said? Or is this what you mean? Is this correct? And rather than assuming based on what I heard, I'm assuming, and boy, I take that assumption and I go down the bunny trail, right? And a bunny trail doesn't happen to be the right trail. And it just creates a little unnecessary havoc for people. Anyway, managing information. 37. Time. Yes. So we have power, we have information, and we have time. Flexibility and concessions come with pressure and time. The higher the pressure, the worse outcome in negotiations. 80% of concessions occur in the last 20% of negotiating time. Now, this is in normal times. You know, again, right now, it's pretty quick because there isn't much negotiating going on. But it's not uncommon for buyers and sellers, they get into a negotiation and they're based on their personalities, they're not quick movers. They're both methodical. And so the buyer puts an offer in, the seller ultimately responds 2 days later, and maybe they negotiate and come back with a little counter offer. And now the buyer has it and they want to think about it. And so they take their sweet time and then maybe they come back and they counter the seller and they're going back and forth like this for a week. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, when one or the other party, their motivation starts shifting and it becomes more pressing, then they'll have deeper, meaningful conversations, and they'll get to the skinny of the matter, and you won't be laboring over the slow tortoise talking to the slow tortoise. The problem with in normal times, that kind of negotiation that goes back and forth and managing time is the parties feel like there's no emergency, there's no rush. So all of a sudden, oh, the property's been on the market for 90 days. I'm not really so concerned that there may be another offer coming in. And while you're taking a week or two to negotiate with the seller, all of a sudden, another offer comes in and you get toasted, you know, you're done. It's a better offer, seller goes to number two, and you go, whoa, what just happened? You know, it's like,
Took your own sweet time.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, page 38, to be successful negotiator, understand personality styles. So that's why you're gonna want to go do the DISC assessment. And so let's just talk briefly about these four big magic letters. We have D, I, S, C. So D, pragmatic. Another word for the D personality is the driver. They're quick thinkers, quick talkers, they're quick movers, they're people that own companies, they're decision makers, and they're those kind of people. They talk fast, they walk fast, they act fast. They want to be in control. They feel that they are. They make decisions and are not afraid of making decisions and of whatever the outcomes. The I, the extrovert. So the I, big personality people. And they're the sort of those charismatic people that we're talking about, that it could get them into a room of 200 people. By the time they leave 2 hours later, they will have shaken everybody's hand and said hi and got business cards, and they're just totally happy yakking it up. And they typically tend to be friendly and warm and big personality people. The D is not necessarily a big personality person. They want to get things done person. The I is personality. And the S, it's described here as amiable. My own word for it is steady. The S's are steady people. They don't need to be center of attention. They're usually not the center of attention. They pay attention to what's around them. They would like to do business with you, but they're not just going to buy into whatever personality you're bringing. You're going to sort of like have to prove that to them that you deserve to do business with them. But they're very kind. So, the C's are your very analytical people. They're your engineers, your math, science people, your people that are behind computers and crunching numbers all day long, and they're perfectly happy doing it. They're into numbers. They're in their own way, very, very exacting, analytical. You know, I remember one of the very first clients I had as a rookie agent way back when, and people relocating from out of the area. The husband was already working here, and I can't remember where their home was, but the rest of the family was back home. So he was working here and he had time to go look at houses. So we were looking at houses, and it struck me fairly early on, but it didn't strike me early enough on. The guy was an engineer, and we would go into these houses, and he had time to kill because it was after work. His family's away, he's here. What's he gonna do? Go back to his hotel room? Right? And we would go to these houses and we'd look through the houses and we'd go into the basements, and all of a sudden his eyes would light up. The guy was he'd like looking at the heating systems, the cooling systems, the plumbing. And he had no intention of buying the house, but we'd be spending an hour or more in the house. It was like, it didn't take me long to start going, wow, what have I got into here? I didn't have enough education at the time to sort of lead the showings and to impress upon him keeping some kind of decorum with time. But it was a learning experience, but that was his personality too, you know, he's an engineer, he's analytical, he's, you know, God bless him. And not to say, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there are many beautiful engineers in the world, right? But that's a personality. If you're just coming across doing potential business, it's gonna be a buyer client. And you find out what they do, and oh, they're both engineers. Well, be prepared. I mean, they're just that, you know, exacting analytical type of people, and that's the way you gotta talk to them. That's the way you gotta communicate. It's the information you gotta provide them. Analytical. All right, so we'll run through pragmatic Ds. They're street fighters, go for what they want. They're certain that there are winners and losers, want to be winners. They fight hard and see little need for concessions. Negotiating challenge, holding a fixed position. So, yeah, I mean, the Ds are the type of people I want you to identify, and you can oftentimes, again, what do they do for a living? And then it might be a phone conversation, and you're on the phone and it's rapid fire, and there's like a timeliness to it that, let's get to the point. And versus, hey, how are you? You know, how was your day? How's the family? How are the kids doing? Oh, yeah, you know, that's your I personality. Your D personality is, you know, let's get to it. So if you got an appointment with a D personality, you recognize that you've got a D personality. You want to be prepared, whatever your style is, you want to be prepared to modify your personality if need be. If you're not a big D, if you're a big D, well, you get along fine because you know exactly how the guy or woman operates, and you'll be able to deliver. If you're a big I personality yourself and you're going to the D personality for a listing appointment, well, you need to be on time. You need to be prepared. You need to let them know as soon as you get in the door what you're going to cover, how much time you need, and you don't need to give them a lot of minutia. You just need to demonstrate that you're professional, prepared, and you want their business, and you're staying on time. And I mean, that's appealing to them, right? Is it making sense? So that's where the record.
This is where I am. I'm more of a D. I'm a woman of few words, straight to the point. That's it. You don't have to chit chat with me. I'm good.
You're good without the chit chat?
Yeah, I'm good without the chit chat.
Yeah, well, here's, all right.
Well, I have to learn. I'm learning. Like,
Well,
I can't be that way like all the time.
it can't be that way all the
Yeah.
time. Well, you can be, but it will, you know, it will reduce your success. If you're stuck in your own personality all the time.
Yeah, I can't.
And we can all adapt. So,
And even as a teacher, negotiating, I'm fixed. You ain't going. No. And they could, miss, we ain't going nowhere. Stop missing me. That's it. Like, and then my boss would be like, Jessica, you just gotta. And I'm like, no.
kind of remind me of my partner Karen, her daughter out in Portland is a teacher, and she teaches Spanish. And I get the sense that Missy is you know, when it comes to her class and education, it's like, yeah, she's a very kind person and all that, but she doesn't give them a lot of slack.
It gotta be a D.
Yeah. All right, a little bit of the I personality, enthusiastic, often overly so. They lose sight that others are not as enthusiastic. Negotiating challenge, often ignore feelings of others in the negotiation. So, yeah, so the big I, yeah, their personality, they want to get to know you. They want to know everything about you. They go to the listing presentation. They're not paying any attention to your C personality, your S personality, your I, if you're an I, you would get along with them fine. But they're going to be really interested in getting to know you from a human point of view, and just get into conversation about life and family and friends. And now, if you're a high personality, you're going to communicate and feel real comfortable with this I personality. You know, you're both on the same page. You both kind of have similar personalities, and you're interested in similar things. So, but if I'm the big I personality and I'm going to go to the big D personality's house for a listing presentation, I need to tone down my yak, right? It's like, And as long as I know that and I can prepare for that, great. So. And then the, going to the S. Pacifiers, goal, make everyone happy, not necessarily win the negotiation. They don't like high pressure encounters. And they long for a solution, even if it doesn't meet their requirements. They're easily swayed. I don't necessarily agree with this description. I would just rather go back to saying, in my opinion, the S is sort of the steady Eddie kind of, yes, they're friendly, they would like to do business with you, but they don't roll over. And they're very observant people. So interestingly enough, I think personality wise, historically, there are more S's in the world as a, because with these personality styles, it's not like everybody is one thing, your combinations, a couple of them typically higher and then a couple of them lower. So an S might be, it could be a D and an S, it could be an I and an S, it could be a C, right? It could be the D and a C. And I've known people because, well, we'll get to the C right now, because that's the last one. So those analytical people, those engineers, those mathematicians, the critical thinker people, they love detail, right? And they're the type of people you go out to do a listening presentation. And if you recognize that there's C personalities there, that they want numbers and statistics, and you can't bring them enough numbers and statistics. If you're the I personality, or you're going out to an I personality home, they're more interested in the connection, the sincerity, the trusting, the bonding of a relationship. Whereas the C people, I mean, they're going to be cordial enough and all that, but they're numbers people, so bring them numbers. You can't bring them enough numbers. And then oftentimes the unfortunate part with the C is your numbers aren't going to match theirs. And they'll hold the position that their numbers are more important than yours, or more realistic. But at the end of the day, you could spend 2 hours. So the D personality, they might want you for 45 minutes or an hour, get to the point, get your thing done, be professional, be prepared, in, out, thank you, ma'am. The C personality, you might be there 2 hours, and it won't necessarily be the warm and fuzzy, I mean, let's talk about your family. It's going to be statistics, numbers, and questions and answers. And you'll spend 2 hours there, and you won't walk out with their listening, because they're analytical people, and they need to think about it. And so it doesn't mean you won't get their business, but you can't push them. You just have to recognize who they are, provide them with the information, be professional, be prepared. And part of the preparation with the C is you might need to be prepared for a little bit longer of a presentation, because they ask a lot of questions. But I find the most interesting of the crossover dynamics are the people with the big D personalities and the big C personalities at the same time. So it's sort of, in my opinion, they're people that are conflicted. So they struggle with it themselves. Because you got the D who's driving, wants to get it done, wants an outcome, and wants to keep moving forward. And yet, oh man, part of their personality is the C, and they're analytical, and they don't have all the right information, and they need more information. And they're like, and
I don't like those.
they're doing something of an internal battle, right? So,
Yeah.
in the sales world, the ideal personality types to be successful in sales are described as people with big D and people with big I at the same time. So, and our owner is, you'll get to see him and know him on some level, Matt Erdman. Matt's a perfect D personality guy. He's running this company. He runs the whole New England operation for Keller Williams. I mean, he's a very busy guy, hardworking. He's a driving force. Yet he's very kind, and he's very social. So he can, when he's in the environment for that I personality, he's very dynamic. yet behind the scenes, he's getting things done all the time. Anyway, so these personality styles and characteristics can be really important.
It's true, because I will get frustrated
Yeah.
on the indecisive person. Is one of my friends, that's how she is, and she knows I don't want to talk about it 5, 6, 10 times. Like once or twice, this is it. Like, I don't want to hear about it. And then she would, oh, and then I'm frustrated because I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, very indecisive. And then she'll get mad at me that I'm being mean. It's not being mean. It's just that make up your mind and move on. It's just like too much.
Well-
Yeah, we'll get frustrated. No,
Well, that's-
no.
I mean, I think it's a good example of, knowing that and identifying, because she is who she is.
Yeah.
You are who you are.
Yeah.
So how do you bridge so that she's not frustrated and you're not frustrated?
Yeah.
And that might be, through this kind of an exercise and going through this,
Yeah.
a little bit of you learning how to have a little bit of different level conversation. Well,
Cause yeah, I've been like researching, reading scripts, and I'm like, I never talked to Book. How are you? How was your day? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm cold calling, I'm asking you, are you interested in selling your house? Blah, 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 blah. That's my script. I'm getting straight
it's like,
to.
put up or shut up.
But then you're like, you have to warm them up. Like, have a little, say, how was your day? Build trust. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah, I know. So I'm like reading, like, that's the part
Well-
that I know that I'm gonna struggle
Well,
with.
here's my observation of you is you have a very compelling personality. You are an attractive person. So there's more than the D.
Yeah,
in
there is.
There's that
There's
friendliness,
nothing-
that warmth. I mean, you've got that.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm learning to be the I too.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying, John. I'm trying.
Keep working. That's it. I mean, hey, this stuff it's helpful. It's educational,
It really is.
For me, I think I'm a mixture of personalities. Like I want to get things done, but the same point, I'm very social also. So
What's the last part? You're what?
sorry.
No, the last part you just said. You said you want to get things done, but
Very social.
But I said like I mixture of the personalities. One side I always believe in to get the things done and I do it. But other side when it comes on top of me, right? So I just want to get it done. And
yeah,
other side also I'm like very social. I'm very patient with people, but I cannot talk much. Like what would say like this the thing you were saying like oh yeah this and that right so I cannot pretend like that but whatever the questions come from me it will be genuine like
Well,
definitely I
yes,
will be interested.
I was just gonna say, what's important with this is that it's authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, putting on the sort of the, oh, how are you? And, when it's not you and you don't really mean it, well, it doesn't resonate, people, no, you gotta be real, I guess it's finding, when you're interacting with people, finding the joy in interacting with people. And yeah, you have to take care of your own space for sure. But having a blend of some social ability, because if you don't, I mean, you definitely need some of that in this business. You don't need to be a raving lunatic, big eye personality by any stretch. Most, that's not a requisite, but if you hate people, this is not a good business, It's like, because you're gonna be dealing with people all the time. More to be. All right, we gotta race through, because I'm getting late on the clock with you two. All right, page 45. Yeah, okay, that's where it jumped to 45, 49, and we got 46, all right, 45. So all these things we'll just run through. tactics, counter tactics, things that you may come across during various negotiations and communications with people. And some of them, there's a whole bunch of them here. We'll race through them, but some of them you'll come across them kind of frequently, and others you might never come across ever. But this is, so we start at page 46, tactics and counter tactics that you may come across. Things described as nibbling, hot potato, higher authority, set aside gambit, mediator, never take the first offer. And then we go to 47. Good guy, bad guy, feel felt bound, smart dumb, walk away, flinching. Then we go to 48, trade-off principle, vice technique, power of the printed word, withdraw offer principle, easy acceptance, funny money. And we conclude on page 1949, decoy technique, red herring, puppy dog close, reluctant buyer, want it all philosophy, splitting the difference. So there's a whole bunch of these kind of counter tactics or tactics and counter tactics that may come across your path during your world of real estate negotiating. So the first one, nibbling, page 15. This one's fairly common, so directly after the initial agreement, the other party, the opposition, is most vulnerable. Some things are more easily achieved later in negotiation. Introducing a demand early may mean it will be bargained out or traded off later. So, I mean, people, the nibbling part, I mean, that can be very common for people, their personality styles. And I was talking earlier about the negotiation and it going very slowly back and forth, seller giving a little, buyer coming up a little, negotiate this, that, and they're just nibbling away at things. It's not uncommon, and it's pretty hard to rush people that aren't prepared to be rushed, other than talk about the reward power or the pain power. And we have just as example, we have our buyer who's taken their sweet time responding to the seller. And it seems like the seller has given our buyer a good counter offer. And, look, it's our buyer's decision. Their timing is it's their timing. It's not mine, but I want to impress upon them, maybe introducing a little of the pain factor. Charlie, Mary, at any point in time while we're negotiating back and forth with the seller, another offer could come in. And if that offer there's a great chance, and that agent talking to the listing agent is going to say, hey, we're interested in your house. You got anything going on? That listing agent, with the permission of the seller, is going to say, yes, we're in the process of negotiating right now. Now, that second buyer who's really interested, that agent working with that buyer is going to tell them, whoa, they're already in the throes of negotiating something. My suggestion to you, buyer two, is if you want this property, you're really going to have to come forward and put your best foot forward. All of a sudden, boom, they get that second offer, and it's a great offer. Now, we've been going back and forth, trying to get to a happy conclusion, but we haven't gotten there. Second offer comes in, and now my buyer is thrown out of competition. And I need to impress upon my buyer that, not saying that this will happen, but it can happen, and it has happened many, many, many times. How would you feel if that happened in this instance? And maybe having that conversation helps the buyer to do a little self-discovery that maybe they really do want the house, and they don't want to get stuck in the mud over the last $500, but they want to seal the deal and get it done. Right? Anyway, nibbling. I won't spend as much time about hot potato, page 51. Now, this is real estate and life, the hot potato. So you have a job to do in real estate. You have a job to do. The other agent has a job to do. Buyer has a job to do. Seller has a job to do. We all have jobs to do. But that other agent maybe is a lazy agent, or they just don't want to be bothered. It's something that's very important to the transaction and getting it to close. And they're just happy to throw it off onto your plate and say, "Here, you deal with it." And think of what's important. Sometimes we do, And that's okay, as long as you understand that you have just accepted the hot potato. You know, because there are times when it's probably not appropriate to take the hot potato, and you need to call that other person out and let them know that, no, you're not receptive to taking the hot potato. Make sense? I mean, this is not just real estate, this is life. I mean, people,
You have
you know, people are throwing hot potatoes at each other all the time. It's like, if you're gonna accept the hot potato in real estate, at least be aware that you are. And if you're, don't think it's appropriate, then be clear that it's not appropriate. But you will see the hot potato. That's- Higher authority, yes. So. People, some people, you know, the people, as Jessica's just saying, friend, very indecisive, can't make up her mind about things. And in real estate, that can translate to, I am stuck, I don't know what I should do. I'm gonna leave it up to whoever the higher authority is. Now, the highest of the higher authority would be God, right? And that gets, for us, that's like, oh, boy, right? Right? If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Let the Lord tell me, and it could be, but that higher authority could also be a relative. It could be a mom and dad. It could be the best friend. It could be somebody you work with. That somebody who is in the head of the person that needs to make the decision, that maybe is going to be the ultimate party, and it's not our client who's going to make the decision. It's going to be somebody else. And if we can recognize and identify who that might be, the sooner we find out, and the time to really find out about that sort of thing, in my opinion, is when you first are getting introduced to your client, and doing, let's say it's a buyer, doing a buyer needs, wants analysis, and maybe they're the first time home buyer, and they have a pre-qualification from a lender. They seem ready to go. They look like totally good prospects. They're eager, young, they want to buy. Finding out from them if there's going to be anybody such as a family member that might be involved with their decision making. Oh yes, well, we wouldn't do anything without dad, or and then if so, then we want to get dad or mom or whoever that might be involved very early on with the whole process, so that they're not coming into it after the fact, after we've gone under contract, and now we're introducing mom or dad to the property, and then there's the home inspections and anyway. Higher authority people can come into play, and the sooner that we can identify that there is such a person, even if it's the good Lord, and if God on high says, then that's my call. I'm gonna want to have a conversation with my client to let them know that,
Go on fasting soon.
God is gonna be totally supporting you making the decision, We have to help people sometimes. Higher authority, Set aside gambit. So, yeah, sometimes in a negotiation we're in agreement on a whole number of things, but we're not in agreement on this one thing. And rather than getting stuck here and we don't get through the rest of what are we in agreement on, we said, let's put it aside for the moment. Right? Let's come back to this. And can we talk about the rest of the offer and what seems to work or doesn't work, what fits? And then we have that discussion, and then we come back to the issue, and perhaps it's less of an issue. We've got agreement on 6 points that are very, very important. Now it's the 7th point. Well, what can we do to work through this versus we don't even get through point A. So we don't even get to discuss the rest of it. So that can be very effective. Let's put it aside. Let's talk about the rest. And we'll come back to it. Sound like a deal? Yep, good. And 54, bringing in a third party to mediate. So yeah, part of what this is, look, we're looking for solutions. We've got a buyer that's here, a seller that's here. They would both like, that person wants to buy, that person wants to sell. They're stuck here. Maybe there's somebody that we can bring in that can help solve the differences between. It might be a home inspector person. It might be a lender. It could be an attorney. It might be a church person. Who, might be me, the broker. It might, but looking outside of the box, who can we get somebody else engaged that can help these people get past where they're stuck, wherever it is. 55, never take the first offer. So it says here, always go through negotiating process and make the other side feel that they've won something. You won't feel satisfied if you don't try for a better deal. So I don't agree with this, certainly not in our current market. When you have buyers putting in, you got 10 and 15 offers and all of them are putting in their best offer. It's foolish, I think, pound foolish for a seller to want to negotiate something back with whoever is the winning bid, just so that person understands that their winning bid was really good, but it wasn't quite good enough. That's silly. If there's a reason, in my opinion, if there's a reason to counter an offer, counter it. Otherwise, don't. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. 56, good guy, bad guy. Man, so, example of the good guy, bad guy historically might be the car salesperson. You go in, you want to buy a car and you're working with the salesperson's really cool. You got a nice relationship going. They're very helpful, friendly. You're out test driving your car, you want to buy the car, you come back in, now you want to talk about price. And you want to offer X for the car. And now this is also a changed market, because in reality today, you don't even get to negotiate with these car dealers, right? It's like, it's funny world, but you used to. And so you'd want to offer less for the car, and the salesperson, well, they want to be the good guy. So they want to keep that relationship with you. I couldn't possibly make that kind of a decision. I'm gonna have to go speak to my manager. Manager's out smoking a cigarette in the back. And salesperson comes out and says, yeah, we got little Mary in there, and she wants to buy the car, but she wants to buy it for X. And so who comes in but to be the bad guy, the sales manager? He's very polite. Sorry, Mary, hi, I'm John, the sales manager. Yeah, I understand you want to over, but we can't possibly do that, Mary. I'm sorry, that won't work. We could do it for this, but we can't do it for that. And I wish you the best. And so salesperson goes, oh geez, Mary, I'm sorry, And anyway, hopefully they keep the relationship, and hopefully Mary buys the car, but
If you find one.
If you find one.
A competitive price somewhere else and you show it to them, they'll jump on it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause that's what happened the other day, well, like a year ago, when we were buying our dad's car. Yeah, and we saw one online that was like almost the exact same thing. I'm like, nope, we're not buying it for this price. This is it. And they're like, okay, we'll do it.
But see, you had done some homework, and
Yeah.
you had hard cold facts.
I'm like, no.
Do the deal for this, or we go there.
Yeah, they jump on it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, the other good guy, bad guy thing could be, the husband and the wife, and one party is easy to get along with, and they're very cooperative, and they're just lovely, and but when it comes time to making the final decision, unfortunately, the person you have a great relationship with and who's very, very lovely is not the decision maker. So, and so the lovely person will get back to you and go, well, John, I'm sorry, Ted and I, we talked about it, and no, we can't do it, not gonna do it, no, sorry. And I'm like scratching my head, because I was convinced, that we were moving forward, but no, Ted's not on board, bad guy.
No, mom and dad too. Growing up, dad was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when mom didn't want to make, go ask your dad. I'm like, oh no, not even. Cause I know the answer is gonna be no. So once she said no, go ask dad, it's over.
It was over,
Forget it.
yeah, you lost your leverage. Yeah, 57, feel felt found. Now, this is a good one, probably an important one. So feel felt found, because arguing creates confrontational negotiation, agreeing up front by using phrases like, I understand how you feel. Many others have felt the same way. However, we've always found. So where this comes in, an example where it comes into play, you've got a seller who's just authorized you to go back to the other party with some ridiculous bad decision. You know it, you've got enough experience to know that the other side is going to react very poorly to this negotiation from our seller. And so, but rather than saying to our seller, boy, you know, that's a stupid idea, or what, are you kidding me? Or you gotta be nuts. So we take that deep breath and we say, hey, you know, Charlie, I know how you feel. So many people have felt this way. And may I share something with you? Because historically what's happened is, even though it seems like the right direction to take, what we have found is that by doing this, the result has been this. The feel felt found is you're honoring them, you're not being confrontational with them. The same thing with the buyer, it's the same feel felt found conversation. Now, it needs to be authentic, it needs to be real. It's not something you're just making up because you want to sound good. But people will at times want to suggest that we do X, Y, or Z, and they think it's a good idea, and we know because of our business, it's not a good idea. And how do you get through that? So, does this always work? No, nothing always works, but it can be very, very effective. Feel felt found. Had you ever heard of the feel felt found before? Either of you? No, it's it's a deflection of, a deflection on the one side and hopefully providing an opportunity for self-discovery on another. Yeah, 58, Smart and Dumb, Three Stooges. Who remembers the Three Stooges? No, blank stare over there. You remember the Three Stooges?
Yeah.
Go back into the 1950s, black and white TV. These guys were brothers, and they're just hysterical comedians. Smart, dumb, dumb, smart, smart is dumb. Always play dumb and don't give yourself away. The other side will be kept off guard and will try to help you. And where this comes into play, for us, most frequently would be people of different culture who English is not their first language. And so we don't really know how well they communicate and understand or not. And oftentimes they do, but they pretend not to because they want to get their way. And so you're presenting something and they're looking at you like you got two heads. And like, what are you talking about? And then so every time you express something that is part of this negotiation, that perhaps it's the other side, countering something, and they're going to come right back and keep their fixed position and kind of like playing dumb. And sometimes it's real, and that's another whole issue, because that's when if so, that means there is a language communication barrier, and we need to get somebody communicating with them that can communicate with them to the best of everybody's ability. It might be English and Spanish. Well, I'm Spanish first and English second. Well, how good at English and how much do you prefer Spanish? And so if I don't know a lick of Spanish, so maybe I've got to bring somebody who speaks Spanish into the mix. And we have, by the way, as a resource, we have people that speak a number of languages. So if you running into an issue and you think you need some help, at least explore, call me. We'll find out whether we've got somebody on board that, speaks Portuguese or speaks Chinese and Mandarin or, whatever. But people will from time to time play the dumb thing. Eastern European, some of you know, I'm half Polish, half Lithuanian, but like some of New Britain Polish, you know, some of these people, they've really never really learned very much English. You know, they live in that Polish enclave. And also I can tell you for a fact that, well, actually, it really is just every culture, but Eastern European people are pretty hard-headed. And so, I mean, if they want to play dumb, you know, they can do it as well as anybody. So,
I see it in my classroom, but like else,
yeah,
yeah, I know they know English, but they wanna play dumb with me and don't wanna do the work or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, so I do see, I get what you're saying, and even sometimes you might be walking and you might be talking to somebody and they like, don't speak English, and I'm like, that's such a big fat lie, cause like, how can you say that? Well, whatever, yeah.
well, those
I
are
do
the
see it.
kids that grow up to be adults that they've learned at a very early age to take
Yeah.
advantage of.
Yeah, yeah, I'm like, oh, I don't speak English.
I don't speak the language.
Yeah, I don't speak English, and I know that's not true.
So anyway, be aware that you'll sometimes come across that, maybe depending, you know, maybe you won't, but it can be frustrating. What are we at? Page 59. Wow, chapter walk away. Yeah, so. Oh, it's 5:04. All right,
Yeah, John, actually, I have a hard stop.
I'm gonna let you guys, there's only a few more pages of this. Read through these things. You can read them yourself. And if you have, on the ones that are remaining, if you have any kind of questions about what they mean, or just give me a holler. But I want to send you away
Mhm.
within a reasonable time.
Definitely, I will go through it, John. Like if I'll have some question regarding to understand the scenarios, definitely I will. So the same email you shared with me, right? So I can ask any question on that
Yeah.
email.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you for showing up and
Yeah,
taking part.
yeah,
Yeah.
this was good,
She just got her license like today.
Yeah, she was telling me. This is good, John.
Thank you, John. I really, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Have a
thank
great
you.
night.
Bye.
Yeah, there.
I feel like I'm learning so much, like.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a
I
good
really do. Like, I feel like I'm not going out there feeling dumb,
Yeah.
as if I can't do it.
Well, you can definitely, yeah, and
Yeah.
the good thing is, just keep in mind that you can absolutely do it. You can absolutely do it. And and a big part of starting out with this stuff is just don't be afraid to talk to people. You know, what you don't know from the technical real estate contract part, you know, is all the support in the world to support you. What you want to do is start just getting out there, taking classes, which is what you're doing, but just, you know, getting that, even you want to yak,
Yeah.
let people know what you're doing, get in front of people,
I agree,
talk to
yeah.
people.
That's exactly what I'm trying.
Yeah. Yep.
You'll get that.
Once it starts happening,
Yep.
it will. Mhm. This part of new agent syndrome that some people have is they because there is so much to learn, you get stuck in I gotta learn this before I do this, I gotta learn this before I do this.
That's true.
And then you sort of, you're intimidated by it versus embracing it.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, cause like I got my license like 2 years ago, and then I was with EXP. And then I joined their mentorship program, but I didn't felt supported. I felt like